we're with Meena Palaniappan and her amazing organization, Atma Connect. And the mobile version is Atma Go. This is so big and so important in the world, but it didn't start that way. And it's a great testament to how any of us can see a problem and start at solving it and wind up somewhere else entirely and do good all along the way. So, Meena, tell us the story of where you started. You started out simply doing something in Jakarta about water access, right?
Yeah, it started even before that. I'm an
Okay.
environmental engineer, water engineer by training, and I was working in India. I've been working in India for decades on water and sanitation, and just started to see that communities still didn't have water, but increasingly they had mobile phones.
Okay.
And so I started to think, how can we use this ubiquitous technology to make visible the invisible? These folks that were just not on the map and not receiving the services. And as I looked further and did some projects in Indonesia, I saw that often we were using mobile phones in international development contexts to tell people what to do or to collect information from people in the
Mm.
service of larger institutions and organizations. And so I really wanted to create something that really recognized people in grassroots communities as ingenious and powerful. Everyone is ingenious and powerful and resourceful. And how can we connect them to one another so they can build that power and create the communities they desire?
Mhm.
And so we started out in Indonesia with, getting all of this advice from Silicon Valley, advisors who said, focus, focus, focus. And so we focused on helping people living in low income communities to share water price information with each other
Okay.
so that they could increase the affordability of water that they were
Mhm.
buying from water vendors. But we kept asking folks, how can we make this better? How can we make this work for you and something that you really need? And they said, we'd really like to share more than just water price information with our neighbors. And so we threw away what we had developed and rebuilt and relaunched as a hyper local social network with
Okay.
this nested geographic architecture so that people could share anything. And incredibly, people started using it immediately in the chronic flooding in Jakarta. And they were sharing these things, these safe routes through the city, telling each other to watch out for signs of waterborne disease in
Right.
children. And suddenly we were working in this huge gap in disaster and started to see the power of neighbors helping neighbors in that first to recover, to sort of respond to disaster, helping people out of unsafe situations in the days after disaster, helping them get shelter and the resources that they needed. And what was incredible is that in the months and months after disaster, after the aid agencies had left, people were organizing together to rebuild, to protect their communities from the next disaster by planting trees, by clearing garbage from stormwater drains, by practicing emergency drills. They were creating just a more resilient community.
Okay. So, one thing I want you to comment on is the fact that it would look like humans seem to learn, grow, come together, all that we know we should be doing right now. It seems like we need to have a disaster. It's like all hell has to break loose. And then we're motivated to put our differences aside and talk to each other and invent together and improv, as it were, in the moment. Do you see that? Am I wrong about that? Or and then I have to add to it. The second question is, it sounds like you've actually also captured when you just said, and then after the disaster, after the aid folks are gone, it seems like you've not only acknowledged that part that I first commented on, but you've created systems that can keep the good times going, to keep the ideation going, keep the neighborliness going. So, talk to us about this whole concept of why do humans have to be backs against the wall before we come together?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And Rebecca Solnit wrote this book, Paradise Built in Hell, and really looked at this incredible fact that, whether it was the Holocaust or after a disaster, it was like there's so many stories of such tremendous good that was being done at a
Mhm.
cost to people's safety.
Right.
So many incredible things that happen. And the reality is that that is happening all the time.
Right.
And we sometimes don't see it. And I think that it's true even in disaster or crisis, we focus on, all of the things that are going wrong or the people that are doing wrong. But in every story of crisis, there are the helpers, the folks that are there to support their community, to do whatever it is that needs to be done, and that is us. That's humans. And we absolutely need to create systems like this Conspiracy of Goodness podcast and this movement where we start focusing on and seeing the good, recognizing it as valuable, and creating systems that uplift this, that
Right.
create more and more of this. And that's really what we've been doing.